Good evening, everyone. Welcome at Tushita and welcome online. Let us take a moment to arrive here at Tushita and those who are at home watching us online. So we can start by taking 3 deep breaths. Every time we inhale, our mind refreshes. Every time we exhale, we relax. Then we will start with a 5 minutes meditation practice. 5 minute single pointed meditation called shamatha in Sanskrit, which literally means calm abiding, calming the mind in order for the mind to be more concentrated, to be focused on what we want the mind to focus on without, being distracted too much. So since we have quite a few new people here at Tushita, we'll give the instructions for this meditation. The first thing is to look at your body posture. Ideally, we are sitting on the floor, and we sit in the posture of a Buddha that is called Vairochana, that is in 7 points. So, if we can, we would be sitting in full lotus posture. That might be a bit uncomfortable. So, make sure you're comfortable, cross-legged or lotus, half lotus, or even, Burmese style with one leg in front of the other. But don't force yourself. The most important instruction is for the back to be straight. If you're sitting on a chair, don't lean against the support. And also, don't lean forward. Your shoulders are relaxed and even. Your hands, you can put them in the meditative mudra. So your right hand is on the left and your 2 thumbs are slightly touching. And this rests at your lap. Make sure there is some space, between your arms for the air to pass. Shoulders are relaxed. The back is straight. The head is slightly, is aligned with the spine, slightly tilted forward, but not too much. And this might surprise you, but we actually don't meditate with the eyes completely closed. We leave them slightly open. And we gaze in the space in front of us, maybe 1 or 2 meters in front of us, but we don't actually pay attention to what our eyes are apprehending. It is the mental consciousness that meditates. And then a tip of the ancient masters is for your tongue to be touching your upper palate, behind the upper teeth, to reduce the production of saliva as much as possible. So this is the first instruction, the body posture. The most important of these 7 points is for your back to be straight, for your body to be upright. The second instruction is the mental focus, your focal point, your actual object of meditation. So if you're familiar with shamatha practice, you can bring to mind the object you usually meditate on. And if it is your first time, what I would suggest is that you visualize a very tiny drop of white light between your nose and your upper lip. So in this area, very small, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters in diameter, and place all your attention on this very small dot of white light. So we'll try for 5 minutes to maintain our attention, our focus on that drop of light. But the third instruction is that during meditation, especially as beginners, our mind will be distracted. So it is important to identify how the mind gets distracted. There are 2 ways. The first one is excitement. So for example, I will start thinking about what I will be having for dinner tonight, or what I did earlier in the day or yesterday or whatever. And the second is that the mind can get distracted with laxity, dullness, lethargy, like mental sinking, kind of falling asleep. So these are the two ways the mind gets distracted. So it is important to identify them. And the fourth and final instruction is the antidotes to these two errors. So the first one is called introspection. Introspection means to have a part of your mind that is constantly checking, am I meditating? Am I concentrated on my mental object? If not, when I notice, and every time I notice that my mind has wandered, either in excitement or lethargy, as soon as I notice, I make the effort to bring my mind back onto my object with mindfulness. This is the second antidote. With mindfulness, I make sure that my mind stays there. So we will try this for about 5 minutes. gently come out of the meditation. Now that our minds are hopefully a bit more focused, we'll try to, as usual, generate a good motivation for listening and contemplating to the teachings of the Buddha. So we can visualize in the space in front of us Shakyamuni Buddha, surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. For those who are at Tushita, you have an image of Shakyamuni Buddha here, and he's also at the center of this image on the screen. So he's the historical Buddha who gave the teachings 2,500 years ago. So we visualize him and all other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas around him. We can also visualize in front of him our teachers, for example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We can visualize around us that we can visualize all sentient beings around us, starting with our mother of this life on our left and father of this life on our right, extending to all sentient beings, and we are leading them into this short prayer. And the motivation with which we are doing this prayer and the motivation with which we will listen to these teachings today is called bodhicitta, the mind of awakening in Sanskrit. So the idea is that since beginningless time we have been driven by our karmas and afflictions, due to which we are circling in samsara, constantly taking rebirth and making various experiences, sometimes pleasant experiences, sometimes unpleasant experiences according to the karmas we have created in the past. At this time we have obtained a human rebirth, a human body. We are very fortunate, but still we can see in our daily lives we don't always have pleasant experiences, and we don't have control over the experiences that we have. Sometimes we fall sick, sometimes we have conflict in our families, at work, and so on and so forth. But we can see even with our eyes, for example, animals. You can think of animals in the wild who are living in a constant fear of being eaten by bigger animals. You can also think of animals that are livestock, waiting to be sent to the slaughterhouse, living in small places altogether. Try to generate a sense of compassion for yourself. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and try to extend that wish for all sentient beings, such as those animals. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. I myself will make effort to transform my mind, to be able to help them, to benefit them, to show them the way out of samsara, to lead them to the happiness of liberation and the happiness of enlightenment. So basically this bodhicitta motivation is the wish, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So with this motivation in mind, we can read the prayers that are on the screen. So the first one is a short praise to the Buddha, and the second one is a prayer of refuge and bodhicitta that we'll read one time in English and 2 times in Tibetan. I hope it's readable, Tushita, yes? Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By my accumulations of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Soke Chonam La Jonsho Bado Dagne Gyabso Che Dagi Junso Gipe Tsoknam Ki Jora Pencher Sangye Jo Parasho Sangye Chodan Soke Chonam La Jonsho Bado Dagne Gyabso Che Dagi Junso Gipe Tsoknam Ki Jora Pencher Sangye Jo Parasho. So welcome everyone to this Dharma Talk. So I don't know if you followed online last week, we talked about the mind, we explored what is the mind, the consciousness, and how it can be transformed, how it has an incredible potential for transformation. So today we'll explore this into more detail, especially the potential that our mind has for transformation. And we will look at the 3 scopes, what we call the 3 scopes, or the 3 different motivations that Buddhist practitioners have. There's a little bit of feedback, or is it okay, the sound? Yeah? And yes, please bear in mind that I'm not a guru, I'm a student, so I'm just, parroting whatever knowledge I have received from my teachers. So feel free to ask questions, but bear in mind that I might not have the answer, and so if that's the case, I'll direct you to someone who's more qualified. And actually, please interrupt me if there is something you don't understand, if my English is not clear. Or if you have questions that are, directly related to the point we are talking about. At the end also, we'll try to save some time for questions, more general questions if you have, not necessarily related to what we are talking about today. So today we'll explore these 3 scopes, and next week we'll try to explain how to generate the mind of bodhicitta, the awakening mind. And then in 2 weeks, so we have these sessions on Monday, in 2 weeks we'll explore what is the meaning of the emptiness of objective existence that we will talk about a little bit today. Apart from that, we have other sessions at Tushita. At the moment we have quite a bit of a different schedule these days. So tomorrow we'll have a Guru Puja with Tsok. It's also called Lama Chopa in Tibetan. Guru Puja is the Sanskrit word. And this is also at 6:30. And this will also be in 2 weeks on Tuesday, 7 November. And this Saturday we have a visiting teacher, Glenn Svensson, who will do a full day of shamatha retreat. So the meditation we have done just for 5 minutes. With Glenn on Saturday, we'll do for the whole day with different methods and different instructions. Next Tuesday, we'll have Geshe Dorji Damdul here, who's one of the interpreters of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and present director of Tibet House here in New Delhi, the cultural center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So we'll be giving a teaching on the 6 perfections. And next Wednesday and next Saturday, we'll have Venerable Namjong from Serege Monastery, who on Wednesday will give us some explanation on a practice called reciting the names of Manjushri that has been advised by His Holiness the Dalai Lama just 2 or 3 days ago for us to recite in order to create the causes for us to quickly find the unmistaken reincarnation of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who is one of the founders of Tushita and the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana tradition, about 160 centers and projects around the world. So he showed the aspect of passing away in April. And, in the Tibetan tradition, we look for reincarnations of our lamas, our teachers. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama advises to recite this text. So next Wednesday, Venerable Namjong will give explanation about that text, and we'll do one recitation of the text also together. And next Saturday as well, Venerable Namjong will give a teaching on the Golden Light Sutra that we have been reciting at Tushita the last 2 Saturdays, and we'll also recite on 11 November, also a Saturday, which is a practice that was recommended by Lama Zopa Rinpoche in order to, help with the wars, to create peace in the world. Okay, so first I would like to ask you, what do you think practicing Dharma means? What is your view on that? What does practicing Dharma mean? Please? Living an ethical, moral life. Not harming others, not harming yourself. Thank you very much. All sentient beings. Including? Environment. Including the environment. Climate change is causing so much problems, yes. Any other ideas? Online also, I think you have the possibility to unmute yourself and speak up. Please don't hesitate. But also please here at Tushita, if you have any idea, what does practicing Dharma mean? Doing good to others. Online, any other idea?
It means practicing the right way of life or the right path. If we err or if we do anything wrong, we need to correct ourselves and move on to the right way, right path.
Thank you. So we have some very good answers. Here I tried to summarize what we call a worldly activity or a mundane activity is to engage in something with the wish to care for our present life. So whatever we do for the happiness of this life, basically, is not Dharma. This is what Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to teach us. I see that we have something on the chat as well. Okay, thank you. Is the schedule of the upcoming events at Tushita. And then, on the other hand, practicing the Dharma means doing actions with the intention, to create happiness beyond this life, beyond this present life. So we have very good examples of activities that have been, named, that are Dharma practice, if they are done with this, with this thought of bringing happiness in the future beyond this life. And so we have 3 different types of practitioners, 3 different motivations with which to practice the Dharma. The first one is merely the wish to have happiness in future lives. The second one is called renunciation. It is the wish for the happiness of individual liberation. In Sanskrit, it's called nirvana, the wish for nirvana. And finally, the third type of motivation, the third scope, is called bodhicitta, which is the wish for the happiness of complete awakening, or Buddha in Sanskrit, for the welfare of all sentient beings. So if we look at the first one, the wish for the happiness of future lives, what do we mean by happiness? Strictly speaking, we talk about pleasant feelings, feelings that we want to experience again when they come to an end. And what do we mean by suffering? We are talking about unpleasant feelings, those feelings that we want to be separated from. We want them to stop when they happen. And what is feeling? Feeling is an omnipresent mental factor that has the characteristic of experience. It experiences pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling. It experiences individually the fruitional results of virtuous and non-virtuous actions. Arya Nagarjuna in the text Precious Garland tells us, from non-virtue comes all suffering, and likewise all bad migrations. From virtue comes all happy migrations and the happiness within all rebirths. So it is, linked to what you were saying, practicing morality and ethics. So Arya Nagarjuna here is talking about migrations, about rebirth. So as I was saying, in samsara, because of our karma and afflictions, we are constantly, without control, taking rebirth again and again in different states. So here, let us see what are these different realms of existence in which we take rebirth. At the moment we are human, but we could also be born in a realm called formless. We could also be reborn in a form realm. And at the moment as a human we are in the desire realm. In the desire realm there are 6 different realms. The God realm, called the Sura realm, demigods, asuras, human beings, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings. So the Buddha tells us that from life to life we are migrating from one realm to the other again and again since countless times, since time immemorial, without beginning. So Arya Nagarjuna was telling us that it is non-virtuous actions that propel us into the unfortunate realms, such as animals, hungry ghosts, hell beings, but we can also think of human beings with, poor conditions. Human beings who have a lot of unpleasant experiences, who are very sick or very poor or with a lot of conflict, who are born in the middle of a war or something like that. So let us look at what are these 10 non-virtuous actions that propel us into such experiences. So we have non-virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind. We have 3 of body: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. We have 4 of speech: lying, divisive speech, harsh words, and idle gossip. We also have 3 non-virtuous actions of mind: covetousness, malice, and wrong views. So basically what the Buddha is telling us, if we want to be happy in future lives, if we don't want to experience unpleasant feelings, unpleasant experiences, then refrain from engaging in these 10 non-virtues and practice the opposite, help others, benefit sentient beings. Basically create causes that will bring, as a karmic result, will bring happiness, and avoid engaging in actions that harm others and thereby also harm yourself as a result of karma. So this is the first motivation, wishing for the happiness of future lives. Now if we look at the second scope, renunciation, is the wish for the happiness of individual liberation, the wish for samsara, the wish for nirvana, the wish to cut samsara, to get out of samsara. So what do we mean by happiness in this context? It is to be liberated from this samsara, from this cyclic existence that we have no control of. And what do we mean by suffering in this context? Specifically, we talk not about the gross, obvious suffering of pain that we experience, the unpleasant feelings, but a more subtle suffering, actually the most subtle one, which is called pervasive compounded suffering. That is even experienced, in the God realms, in the form and formless realms. For example, in the God realms, you have only pleasant experiences, but still, everything is divine, everything is blissful, but still we are in samsara, or as a demigod, or even in the form and formless realms, where we experience a lot of bliss, no evident suffering, but still we are at samsara. And when the karma for that pleasant life will be exhausted, again we will take rebirth in another form. So it is said actually that when we are born in the God realms and we experience this bliss, towards the end of our life we have some kind of clairvoyance. We can see that we are about to die, and we can see where we will be propelled, where our karma is taking us in the next life. And this brings a lot of pain even at that point. So our aggregates, our body and mind, we call them the appropriated, contaminated aggregates. They are produced, they are conditioned by karma and afflictions. So this is actually the definition of samsara, taking these contaminated, appropriated aggregates again and again because of karma and afflictions. And pervasive compounded suffering is suffering because we don't have any control. We are propelled constantly because of the karmas we have accumulated. And these contaminated aggregates, this body and mind that is cycling, that is circling in samsara, is the basis for other types of suffering, such as suffering of pain, the evident suffering. So today what we will look at mainly is this wheel of life that you might have seen around monasteries and temples. And more specifically, we will look at what we call the 12 links of dependent origination that are a method that help us to understand how we take rebirth again and again in samsara without any control. This helps us to understand karma and afflictions and how they make us suffer. And by understanding that, we can generate the wish to be liberated from this vicious circle, this samsara. So actually, Shakyamuni Buddha himself, more than 2,500 years ago, asked for this wheel of life to be painted after his two main disciples that you sometimes see him depicted with in front of him, Shariputra and Moggallana. They traveled into the 6 different realms of desire, and they came back with a precise description of what they have seen in those 6 realms. By hearing those descriptions, many disciples generated this sense of renunciation, this wish to, become liberated from the samsara. And a tradition was born to have this painting by the door of temples and monasteries. You might have seen that, which is in order to indicate that the reason we actually enter a temple, a monastery, or a center like Tushita is to actually get out of samsara. We enter the temple to leave samsara. So at the top right, you can see the Buddha, who is pointing at the moon, and this moon represents liberation. He indicates that it is possible to be liberated. On some paintings, such as this one, you also see written instructions under the moon, and sometimes it's also under the wheel. And these instructions say, that might be a very small for you to read, so I'll read it out. The Buddha says, strive to eliminate the defilements or the afflictions. Enter into the teachings of the Enlightened One. Just as an elephant in the midst of huts, destroy the host of the Lord of Death. Those with conscientiousness engage in the Dharma of pacification, abandon the cycle of birth, and bring an end to the miseries. So as you can see, the Buddha is actually outside of the wheel, is outside of samsara. In some paintings, you will also see the Buddha depicted in each of the 6 desire realms, indicating that he has the capacity to manifest in whatever form, in wherever it is necessary to benefit sentient beings. But he himself is liberated. He doesn't have dualistic appearances there. He's fully awakened, even if he manifests to help us. So this helps us to understand that samsara is actually not a place. Samsara is our appropriated, contaminated aggregates, and in particular, our mind that doesn't perceive reality as it is. The Buddha, on the other hand, wherever he goes, he perceives what we call conventional and ultimate truth simultaneously. So to give you a description of what we see on this painting, we have Yama, the main figure. He's the Lord of Death who is holding this wheel. In general, he represents the impermanence and death that we experience without control. With his 2 hands, he holds the wheel, and his 2 hands represent the karmas and afflictions that are binding us in samsara. He has 3 eyes. Sometimes the 3rd eye is represented by a wrinkle, but here in this painting, he has the 3 eyes. And these eyes give an indication that he's the ruler of the 3 times, past, present, and future, unless we apply the remedies that the Buddha is teaching us. In the 3rd innermost circle, we have the 6 desire realms that we mentioned earlier. So this is the biggest part of the wheel. So they are painted in different ways, but in general, we have the God realms at the top and the hells at the bottom. So this is the case here. So you can also see the human demigods, animals, and hungry ghost realms depicted. And so all these lives are temporary. They can be short, they can be long, depending on the karma that we have created. In hell, for example, the suffering is very intense, but it is not a punishment, as can be taught in other religions. It is simply the ripening fruit of our negative actions. Samsara, on the other hand, is not temporary. We will keep turning in this wheel until we are liberated. The 2nd innermost circle, you can see, is half white and half black. It represents the virtuous and non-virtuous karmas that we accumulate. And so because of these karmas, we constantly take rebirth. Sometimes we have fortunate rebirth with pleasant experiences, and sometimes unfortunate rebirth with a lot of suffering, depending on which karma ripens at the time of death. In the center, the very center circle, we have the 3 main afflictions, the 3 main delusions, with a bird that represents ignorance, the snake that represents hatred, and the pig that represents attachment. Then finally, in the outer circle, we have the 12 links of dependent origination, and this is what we will look at in particular today to try to understand how karmas and afflictions bind us in samsara. So we have, top right, we have the first of the 12 links, which is ignorance. I don't know if you can see, it's maybe a little bit small, but it is a painting of a blind man. It doesn't mean that blind people are ignorant. It just illustrates the fact that we do not perceive reality as it is. This is what we mean by ignorance. The second is karmas, actions. Here it is a potter with different sizes of pots. That indicates us that different karmas have different weights. The third is consciousness, that is represented by a monkey like our mind that is constantly, distracted, excited, running after anything that is attractive. The fourth is name and form. Here it is a boat with two people inside that represent our body and mind, our aggregates, our ship, our vessel. The fifth is sense sources. Here it is an empty house with 6 windows that represent our 6 sense spheres. Our eye consciousness, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mental consciousness, our 6 senses. The sixth is contact. Here on the painting is a couple. The seventh is feeling. It is represented by an arrow that enters into the eye of a person, showing us how difficult it is to ignore our feelings that are vivid experiences as intense, as an arrow in the eye. Number 8 is craving attachment. Here it is a person who drinks alcohol. The craving that we talk about here is a type of attachment that creates a very strong desire and that leads to the next link, which is grasping. Here it is a human, sometimes a monkey. Here it is actually a monkey that jumps on fruits. And while he's eating one fruit, his other hand is already grasping, for the next fruit due to his desire, extreme attachment. Number 10 is becoming or existence. Here it is a woman in the last stage of pregnancy, symbolizing a karma that is about to ripen and propel us into the next rebirth. Number 11 is birth, depicted here by a woman who is actually giving birth. And finally, number 12 is aging and death, depicted by an old person that carries a corpse on his back. So let us try to understand these 12 links of the apparent origination. So the ignorance, the link number 1, what it is actually is a wrong consciousness that apprehends ourself and all other phenomena wrongly by adding a layer that is not there. It apprehends things as existing inherently, objectively, intrinsically, independently. Truly, it apprehends things as existing from their own side. But in reality, self and phenomena don't exist in that way. What the Buddha teaches us is that the self exists as a mere label that is imputed on the valid base, which is the aggregates, the body and mind. So the wisdom that realizes the emptiness of objective existence is the key to liberation, to get liberated from samsara. Ignorance is the root of samsara, it's the first link. So it doesn't mean to merely being ignorant about reality is the actual opposite of reality, a total misunderstanding of what reality is. Apart from Buddhas, we also have Arhats and Arya Bodhisattvas who have achieved the 8th Bhumi, that have eliminated this ignorance. But all other beings, they have this ignorance, this apprehension of things as existing truly. The Aryas actually, meaning those beings who have realized emptiness of objective existence directly, they have achieved what we call the path of seeing. For them, this ignorance, even though it's not yet eliminated, they have just started to eliminate it. But because they have seen emptiness directly, this ignorance is not strong enough to produce karmas that will propel them uncontrollably in future lives. So their ignorance is not the ignorance we are talking about here in the first link. This ignorance in the first link is neutral. It is not. It is the virtuous or non-virtuous mental factor that arises on the basis of that ignorance that will lead us to engage in good or bad actions. So because we don't perceive reality as it is, because we perceive it as, being truly real, out there, independent from our minds, independent from anything else, like solidly real, because of that we have this sense of truly existing I, me, myself. And we apprehend this self as being, the most important, the center of the universe. And because of that, all sorts of mental afflictions arise, attachment, anger, pride, jealousy, and so on and so forth. And these afflictions, they lead us to engage in different karmas that later will ripen, sometimes in the form of an unpleasant rebirth. So this ignorance, the first link, is the root. It is the driving force that will lead to karmas and actions. On the basis of that ignorance, we perceive impermanent phenomena as being permanent. We think that what is in the nature of suffering is happiness, because it gives us temporary pleasure. We see what is actually repulsive as attractive, and so on and so forth. Because of these wrong views, afflictions arise. For example, with attachment, we make plans, we manipulate in order to get the objects that we desire. And sometimes this leads us to, lying or even stealing to get what we want. And when we don't get what we want, then we become angry. We have harmful thoughts and we make plans to retaliate, thinking our anger will protect us. So attachment and anger are not actually part of these 12 links, but some teachers consider them as being part of the first link, ignorance, and some others consider attachment and anger to be part of the second link, karmas and actions. And so this second link of karmas, they are the actions that we create because of ignorance, attachment, and anger. Our actions of body, speech, and mind are distorted and leave a karmic imprint on the mind. So just after having created karma, the action itself is done, it's finished, but it leaves an imprint, a stain on our mental continuum, what we call a karmic imprint that will remain until it eventually manifests as a pleasant or unpleasant experience in the future, depending on the nature of the action. So this karmic imprint will stay with us until it ripens or until it gets eliminated or purified. So for a karmic action to be powerful enough to propel us into another life, so for example, to propel us into an animal life at the time of death, this karmic action must be complete with 3 branches. The first is the intention or the preparation, the motivation to do an action. The second branch is the engagement in the action itself, either by ourselves, so for example, killing ourselves or asking someone, requesting someone to do it for us, to perform the action for us. And the third branch is the actual completion of the action, when the action is done, when our initial wish has been accomplished and we rejoice that it is done. So if an action is done with these 3 branches, it becomes a complete karma. And a complete karma can lead to 4 results. The first one is a rebirth in one of the 6 desire realms: animal, hungry ghost, and so on and so forth. The second is experience similar to the cause. So for example, someone will steal something that belongs to us, if we have accumulated action of stealing in the past, a full action of stealing in the past with these 3 branches. And the third is a tendency, a habit to engage in this action again and again in the future. For example, somebody who enjoys fishing, that can be a ripening of a karma of someone who engaged in a lot of killing in the past. As a result, in this life, they enjoy fishing, they enjoy killing. And finally, the fourth result of a complete karma is the environmental result. For example, living in a place that is dusty or smelly, you know. Then if we look at the third link, consciousness, it is what we talked about last week, you know, consciousness or mind, that is defined as being clear and knowing, this clear and knowing agent. In the context of the third link, it's actually the continuum of consciousness, in particular, the mental continuum that is the basis for karmic imprints. This continuum carries the imprints that will later ripen, a bit like seeds, you know, in the soil, that will be the cause for a young shoot and later a sapling. But it's not enough for the seed to be in the soil, you know, it also needs favorable conditions like water, fertilizer, and so on and so forth to transform into that shoot and sapling. So the consciousness that is described in this third link is afflicted. It leads sentient beings to the next rebirth. So this third link is divided into two specific moments. So we can say 3A is the causal consciousness. Causal consciousness which contains the karmic imprints. And then we could say 3B, which is the resultant consciousness, which will enter the womb by the time of conception in the next rebirth. So to summarize, until now, so we have these first 3 points. Because of ignorance, we engage in action. The karma is accumulated with this action, and the next moment is consciousness, the third link. It means that when a karmic action finishes, it leaves an imprint, a potential on the mind. When the second link, the action finishes, at the same time the third link takes place. At that time, the karmic imprint is left on the mental continuum and has the potential to ripen when the conditions come together. So the third link, as I was saying, of consciousness has two factors. The consciousness at the time of the cause, the action, and the consciousness at the time of the result. So the first is the consciousness that exists at the time of the action, until a new consciousness is appropriated by this potential, this imprint or this seed that is created. So until a rebirth, which is the effect of that cause, until that rebirth takes place, then this imprint is kind of stored in our mental continuum. Then the fourth link, name and form, we could more precisely call it name and or form, because, you know, we also have realms that are formless, so without a physical body. So basically, name and form, this fourth link, is our aggregates, our body and mind. The fifth link, the 6 sources or sense spheres, are the 6 main minds and the senses that come along a new rebirth. We have the eye consciousness, the ear, smell, touch, taste, and the mental consciousness. So these are the 6 sense sources. The sixth link, contact, it is that which the mental factor that allows for consciousness, senses, and objects to meet. And it is the cause for the seventh link, feeling, that make us know if the object we come in contact with is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral for us. The eighth link, the craving attachment, is referred to as the desire to take rebirth. For example, the moment when we die, we might feel cold and have this thought, I would like to experience more warmth. So this will influence the type of rebirth that we take. And then the next link, link number 9, grasping, is also a type of attachment, but the difference here is that the previous one is a wish, like an aspiration, whereas here grasping is referring to actually, you know, taking rebirth. It is the grasping attachment that gives power to the karmic seed. It gives power for these karmic seeds to actually ripen. The 10th link, becoming or existence, is similar to karmic actions, but here the imprint has been activated. It has been nourished by the craving and grasping, and therefore it can produce the effect, the rebirth. It is the full ripening of the seed, which is the very last moment of one life. Link number 11, birth, refers to the actual rebirth, at the time of conception in the womb. And link number 12 is either aging or death. At the first moment of conception, when we take birth, from the second moment already, we start aging. We call it aging or death because there are cases of, death just after conception, like the second moment already, without any time for aging. So this is a gross explanation of the 12 links of dependent origination. And this is the order in which they are taught to understand their meaning. But in reality, these 12 links, they happen in a different order. First, we have the first two links and the first part of the third. So 1, 2, and 3a. Ignorance, karma actions, and causal consciousness. So these are the three causes. And these three causes that will have, they will have as a result the resultant consciousness, the name, the form, the 6 sense sources, contact, and feeling. So this is the result of these causes. Because of ignorance, karma and imprints 1, 2, and 3a, we obtained this resultant consciousness. We obtain also the aggregates, the senses and the mental factors that will experience objects as being pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. But for this propelling to happen, we first need that at the time of death, craving attachment, craving and grasping for feelings, these allow for the karmic seeds to ripen and give rise to birth, aging, and death as a result. So in short, in this life, because of ignorance, karma, and imprints, links 1 to 3, at the time of death, we have attachment, craving, and grasping that will activate the karmic seeds, so the links 8 to 10, and this will propel us to a new rebirth. So we'll take rebirth, link number 11, and simultaneously we'll have a consciousness that is again stained with imprints. We'll have aggregates, senses, and mental factors, which are the links number 4 to 7. And these will age or die, which is link number 12. So with this explanation, we can see the 12 links are spread, how they are spread into 2 lifetimes. The action, the karma accumulated in the first life. So the links 1, 2, 3a, 8, 9, and 10, they're all related to the life in which the karma is accumulated. If you want, feel free to turn off this space if the remote is there. Okay. Yeah, it is a bit cold. Yeah. So we have these links 1, 2, 3a, 8, 9, and 10 that are related to the life in which the karma is accumulated. And all the other links, they are the results which are established in the next life. So this is how it is explained in 2 lives. In the case of at the time of death, the karma that I have accumulated in this life will ripen. And this will propel me immediately into the next life. But in general, these 12 links are actually completed in 3 lifetimes. So just like before, we perform an action in this life motivated by ignorance. So there is a new karmic seed, which is the link number 3a, the causal consciousness, this karmic imprint. So until now, there is no difference. The difference is that at the end of this life, this karmic seed is not activated. It doesn't ripen because another one ripens. Then this karmic seed will be stored, and it could take eons. It could take many, many lifetimes until it ripens. So there is no certainty when a karma that is accumulated will ripen. Let's say, for example, that there are 5 lifetimes before the accumulation of one karma and its ripening result. If the 6th life must be the result of that karma, then at the end of the 5th life, this karma at the time of death will ripen. The links number 8, 9, and 10 that are related to that particular karma, craving, grasping, and becoming, they will manifest at the end of that life. And as a result, the following life will have, because of that particular karma, the next life will take place. So let me try to explain with different words. Let's say in this life, we call it life number 1. Because of ignorance, I create the karma of, let's say, killing an insect. So this will leave an imprint, a karmic imprint on my consciousness. But when I die later in this life number 1, let's say that it is not this particular karma of killing an insect that will ripen, but another karma that I have accumulated previously, because I have accumulated countless karmas. Now we constantly engage in actions. So time passes, several lifetimes happen due to other karmas. And then at the time of death, in one of those future lives, let's say life number 17, for example, then that karma of killing that insect will ripen. So the result, which will be life number 18 then, this life will actually be the result of the action that I have accumulated in this life of killing that insect in life number 1. So the difference between the presentation of these 12 links in 2 or 3 lifetimes is simply if the lives, directly follow each other or not. So there are different ways of interrupting these links and not experience the consequences of karmas we accumulate. We can, for example, train our minds to bear hardships in order, not to react with anger, aversion. We can also train our minds to, slow down and see afflictions as they arise, before they arise, to try and apply antidotes before these afflictions push us to engage in non-virtuous actions. So, for example, somebody, pushes our buttons. Somebody comes at us and insults us or does something that, really disturbs us. So we can, with familiarity, we can try and see this anger inside us, that gradually, grows and becomes very present. So when we recognize this, instead of, retaliating and, engaging in a non-virtuous karma with that person by, for example, saying harsh words or whatever we might do with that person, we can try to take a step back and try to apply an antidote, for example, compassion, try to see where that person is coming from. That, for example, this person wants to experience happiness. He doesn't want to suffer just like ourselves. So he's, motivated by his own afflictions and is therefore disturbing us. So if we, try to contemplate that and try to contemplate, especially if the person is creating a negative karma by making us disturbed, if that person himself is, engaging in one of these non-virtuous actions, that we can generate a sense of compassion. That person, is accumulating negative karma, so in the future will experience results of that. So maybe there's no need, for me to engage also in a non-virtuous action on top of that and make him suffer more and make me suffer more and try, to apply the antidote. That is one way, of interrupting these 12 links. It is also possible to purify karmic imprints, karmas that we have accumulated in the past. for example, with the practice of the 4 opponent powers. We talked about that last week. You have many practitioners who engage, for example, in retreats, meditation retreats of 1 or 3 months to purify their negative karma with practices such as Vajrasattva, for example. But of course, the ultimate method, to cut these 12 links is to actually, cut the root of all of this, which is the link number 1, ignorance. And how do we cut ignorance? Is by realizing the direct opposite of that, by realizing how phenomena actually exist. And the Buddha teaches us that phenomena exist being empty of objective existence. So when we realize the absence of objective existence or intrinsic existence of phenomena, then we start, abandoning this ignorance. In 2 weeks, we'll actually explore how to meditate on that emptiness. So, in the meantime, to conclude what is the second scope, renunciation, we need to know that in order to achieve liberation by realizing this emptiness directly, first we need to achieve calm abiding, shamatha, the perfect concentration that is able to stay focused on one object without any distraction. And in order to achieve calm abiding, one of the prerequisites for calm abiding is perfect morality, perfect sense of ethics. So therefore, engage in virtue and avoid non-virtue. So we can see how the first scope is actually the foundation for the second. If we wish for happiness in future lives, the Buddha tells us, abandon non-virtue and engage in virtue. This is the foundation for renunciation. We cannot, achieve calm abiding, renunciation, and realize emptiness without a good sense of ethics, morality, which is the root. And the second scope is also the foundation for the third. So wishing to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, wishing happiness for others. For that, we must first understand what is samsara and wishing to get out of it ourselves. When we wish the happiness of all sentient beings, we are included in those sentient beings. So to summarize, renunciation is the wish to be free from suffering, the wish to achieve happiness of individual liberation, the wish to be liberated from cyclic existence. The cause of samsara is karma and afflictions. And to put an end to it, we need to cut the root of the afflictions, the ignorance that grasps at objective existence. So to realize the emptiness of objective existence, which is the direct opposite of that ignorance that grasps at phenomena to be truly existing. And in order to realize the emptiness of objective existence directly, we need this uncontrived wish for renunciation and perfect concentration. We need calm abiding, we need shamatha. And as a prerequisite to shamatha, we need perfect morality, ethics. So this is what is explained in the first scope. All right, so we'll today very briefly look at the third scope, bodhicitta. And next, sorry? Oh, I think it's there on the shelf, on the bookshelf there, just under the, just in front of you. Yeah.
Nico, can I take a minute?
Yes, just give me a moment. I'm just going to conclude and then I'll open up for questions.
Okay.
So today we'll very briefly look at the third scope because next week, next Monday, the whole session will be dedicated to bodhicitta. So very briefly, what is bodhicitta? It is a Sanskrit word that means awakening mind. It is the wish to achieve the happiness of perfect, unsurpassed enlightenment. So in Sanskrit, this awakening, this full enlightenment is called Buddha. And we have this wish in order to lead all sentient beings to that state, not only for ourselves. So just like arhats has those, arhats are those who have achieved liberation, who have achieved nirvana. Just like them, the Buddhas have eliminated all afflictions, such as, ignorance, attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, and so on and so forth. They have eliminated all of that, and on top of that, the Buddhas have also completed all perfections. They have achieved the state of omniscience, because they have also eliminated what we call cognitive obscurations. And due to that, they perceive the true truth simultaneously. When they apprehend an object, let's say, for example, a cup, they apprehend both the object and the emptiness of objective existence of that cup simultaneously. And due to their immeasurable compassion, Buddhas constantly engage in activities for the welfare of others and are able to manifest whatever is necessary to benefit them. So next week we will look more into detail at this bodhicitta and how to generate this mind. So I will now open up for questions if you have. I think Ashima, you had a question?
Yes, Nico, I did. Nico, you spoke about trying to understand where a lot of unpleasantness was coming from. Sure, I understand where it's coming from. I know it's coming from social, largely from social conditioning. Could be anything. It could be attention-seeking behavior. It could just be social conditioning. I understand where it's coming from, to use your words. I'm taking on from where you left off. But then what I have to say is that I've also been and I confess my inability to let go. I've not been able to forgive. I've not been able to let go of the past. I felt very hurt and very angry. And I'm in a very unforgiving state at the moment. And that's not a happy place to be in. It's not a good place to be in. So what is to be done about it? How do you learn to forgive and forget? Would Vipassana help you evolve to that level of consciousness where you can let go of the past and of people who've hurt you so deeply? There's no forgiveness for what they've done, Nico.
I'm not too sure I understood your question, Ashima. Could you summarize it?
Do you want me to type it?
No, just summarize it, like make it very short so that I can understand it.
Nico, I find your humility very sweet. You're so humble. There's no ego to you, no arrogance to you. I like that very much. Okay, so what I'm basically saying is that I know that a lot of hurtful behavior comes from social conditioning, because you're expected to live up to people's expectations, largely gender expectations. But then a lot of hurt is caused, and I've been unable to forgive and forget. So is there help for that? Because when you're so unforgiving and so angry, you end up hurting yourself.
Exactly.
So what is to be done about this constant state of anger and a refusal to, I can't let go. Help me get there, Nico.
Well, you can contemplate, that by non-forgiving, by being angry, you are, disturbing your own mind and possibly engaging in actions that will make you, that will ripen negative actions that in the future will ripen suffering experiences for you. So there's actually no point, not to forgive. You can contemplate that those beings who harm you, you can contemplate, as I was explaining, how they are motivated by their own wish to be happy, their own wish to avoid suffering. They also have this ignorance that, they grasp at true existence, because of which all these afflictions arise. anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, and so on and so forth. And all these afflictions, lead them to engage in non-virtuous actions. They engage in hurting you in different ways. So you can contemplate, you can try to generate compassion for them. If they engage in non-virtue in the future, inevitably, these actions will ripen. These negative karmas will ripen and they will have unpleasant experiences. So you can contemplate that and contemplate that if you yourself get angry, if you don't want to forgive, then you are disturbing your own peace of mind, and possibly you're also engaging in non-virtuous actions that will have a ripening result. Sumanlata is asking whether the Shamatha retreat will be also scheduled online. Yes, I think it is both online and at Tushita this Saturday. Sumanlata. I don't know if people here at Tushita also have questions. No questions.
Thank you so much. I am Sumanlata. Because it was not clear in the schedule that whether it is online or only in person.
Sumanlata, I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. I think your internet connection is not so good.
Yes, because it was not written in the schedule that whether it is available online. That's why I was asking.
Oh, yes. The Shamatha retreat will be both, I think, online and offline, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, but please double check our announcements. Might be wrong, but I think it's both offline and online.
Yeah,
On Saturday, it's both, right? All right. Oh, yes, there is a QR code actually that you can scan to register for the Zoom. There is a registration that is required actually to join online. Thank you very much. But there is a link also that you can click and then you are able to register for the online retreat. But if you want to come at Tushita, then you don't need to register for Saturday. All right. Any other question? Otherwise, we can dedicate the merits that we have accumulated in this session by listening, contemplating, meditating. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who is also completely empty of existing from my own side. May the supreme mind of bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. Due to all the merits of the 3 times collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, and the numberless sentient beings, may all wars, sickness, famine, and economic problems in the world, and all dangers of earth, water, fire, and wind be pacified immediately, and may perfect peace and happiness prevail in everyone's hearts and lives. May the Buddha Dharma last for a long time, and may the sentient beings in this world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. We can also pray for the long and healthy life of all our teachers, and especially for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So this is a prayer that was composed by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, because the traditional prayer that we chant and recite for the long life of His Holiness, refers to His Holiness as, the source of benefit and happiness in Tibet. But as Lama Zopa Rinpoche was saying, nowadays, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is like the guru of the whole planet, of the whole world. So he slightly changed the words. So we can read at the bottom in English. incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Thank you very much, everyone at Tushita and online. And so the next session in this format about bodhicitta, this Dharma Talk format, will be next Monday at the same time, 6:30. And so tomorrow at 6:30 we have Guru Puja Tsok, Lama Zopa Tsok. That is only in person, actually. We will not do these practices online. And Saturday then we have this Shamatha day retreat with Glenn Svensson, the whole day. Then next Tuesday, Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdul is coming here and will teach on the 6 perfections. And then I think the next day, next Wednesday, the 1st of October, Venerable Namjong from Serajay will be here. Next Wednesday and next Saturday, teaching on the chanting the names of Manjushri and the Golden Light Sutra. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night, good evening. Thank you.